Hello. Thanks to everyone for joining us today for this fantastic session on building your technology strategy. Many companies I speak with are at such different places on their journey, and it's fantastic to host this session where we'll be taking a look and talking about different types of mobility technology strategies and realizing that we all have one. We'll be sharing some tips and tricks to help you identify where you are on that journey, how to spot a decision point, and how to put a strategy in place that works for you and your team. We will also be looking into the future to see how to future-proof your strategy and how to identify what to look out for that will tell you when you need to change your strategy. I'm your guest host, Beth Neilson, taking over from Brian for 1 week only. For those of you who don't know me, I work at Benivo in client development, and prior to joining Benivo, I worked at Deloitte, Equus, Topia, and at an RMC, all with a focus on mobility technology. Brian is kind enough to describe me as a technology guru, certainly a technology enthusiast. Because I have always loved technology and innovation, I am particularly excited to be part of today's show, and I'm also joined by two other tech enthusiasts, Eric Halverson and Mary Weaver, tech gurus in their own right. It's great to see so many people joining. Thank you so much for all of the well wishes. Please do let us know where you're joining us from so I can give you a shout out. Oh, I've got someone joining from the Bay Area. Fantastic. Thanks, Drew. Next week, Brian will be back speaking about all things mobility with Lynn Shotwell, and they'll also be getting a sneak preview into what's in store for those attending the ERC conference in Vegas. Brian will also be joined by Karen Segal and Tristan North of ERC, as well as our tax and immigration gurus, Pat Jurgens and Julia Onslow-Cole. Regulars of our show will know that watching this show gets you CPD credit. So thanks to our friends at ERC and Rocket Mortgage for all, for all of you who are doing ERC and SHRM who need those credits, those CPE codes will be at the bottom of the screen shortly. Tally will also be sharing those in the comments. I'll give a few minutes or a few seconds, for people to note those down. Before we get into today's discussion, I wanted to start, as Brian always does, with an update from the industry. What's going on? Who's moving? So here we go. Congratulations to everyone who's been promoted or moved roles, and especially congratulations to our changemakers, Samir and Karen. We are, of course, also ecstatic to have been nominated for five times for the upcoming EMEA Emmas. We are really looking forward to seeing some of you there, obviously at the Emmas in London, and also at the shortlist party next week, which is hosted by Vialto Partners. If anyone is coming, let me know. I'd love to say hello. As you've seen, there's also still lots of exciting opportunities at Benivo. Please reach out and speak with me or any other team members if you'd like to know more, or check out our jobs page. I think Tally's going to put a link in the comments section soon. Another opportunity to meet Benivo in person if you're in the US, my colleagues Mary, Cara, Pavel, Matthew and Nitsan are all going to be attending the ERC Global Workforce Symposium in Vegas at the end of the month. So please do say hello. Okay, that's the news from the industry. So let's now speak to Julia and find out what's happening in the world of immigration. Let's all put our virtual hands together for the one, the only Julia Onslow-Cole. Hello, Julia. Welcome to the show.
Very nice to see you.
Where are you this week?
So I was in Riyadh, and I'm going to be talking about Saudi Arabia today, but I've actually just got back from Riyadh and I'm back in Dubai. But it was really lovely because through Benivo, I connected with Christopher Henry, and I'd never met Christopher, but I saw from the comments on the side that he was in Saudi. And so he very kindly came to the party that Fragman had in Riyadh, and it was really lovely to see him, and just shows the power of Benivo, really.
Wow, that's brilliant. We love to connect people. It's a great example of it. Thanks, Julia. And what do you have to tell us about Saudi this week?
Yes, so I just wanted to sort of give everyone an update on what's going on in Saudi and the immigration framework. And I wanted to say a really big thank you to Murtaza Shah and Kevin Crasto, and also Dalia Mashadi for helping me with this update. So it is actually very exciting in Saudi. They have this Vision 2030, and it's basically to drive the kingdom away from oil dependency and to become a world leader, but in a variety of sectors. So it's a multi-sector approach, and that's why so many companies are actually expanding in Saudi Arabia. There's a real drive on these giga projects, so the Red Sea project, NEOM, the line, and they are forecasting a tenfold interest in visitors in the next 5 to 10 years. There's quite a lot of historic sites like Al Ula, which is twinned with Petra. So, you know, a lot of things are happening, a metro, all sorts of things. And one of the topics for discussion when you talk to global mobility leads in Saudi Arabia is this announcement that you have to have your headquarters, your regional headquarters in Saudi Arabia by 2024 if you want to be preferred for a government contract. And obviously that's an enormous incentive for companies to do that. There are some, you know, other benefits. For example, there's some tax benefits and some exemptions from Saudiization, but the main thing that companies are focusing on is being preferred for these government contracts. And what we're seeing a lot of companies doing is actually moving part of their management services and management functions to Riyadh or another city in Saudi Arabia. So they get the benefit of this, but then perhaps they might retain other management functions elsewhere in the region. So to comply with this, you have to have a company in Saudi, a company outside the GCC, but in the MEA region. And you need to, you know, really show that you have actually, you know, at least moved a substantial bit of your, you know, your management functions to Saudi. I see Bill Zaleski is saying about the NEOM line. I know it's really actually quite incredible. So just talking about visitors. So this is all very topical, and this is exactly what people are talking about with Saudi. So much going on, so much interest, but then it is quite complex about how you can even visit. So there is a tourist route, and you can get visas on arrival, 49 nationalities can, or you could get an e-visa. And I'd highly recommend that you get the e-visa rather than rely on getting one on arrival, because sometimes the system is down and the e-visa it can be issued on the same day. But the key thing is it's limited to tourist activities. So, if you're a business traveler, we'd really recommend that you get the standard consular business visit visa. And that's for all nationalities. It can only take like 1 to 5 days, and you need a letter of invitation from a Saudi company, but it's much better and safer to do that. And then there's the temporary work visa, which is causing so many headaches for companies, because the idea of it was to allow people to go to Saudi to work temporarily. And unfortunately, in the execution of that immigration policy, the authorities are requiring all of the documents that you would require for a long-term employment visa. So that is actually incredibly time-consuming. It's also very laborious to get all these details. And also, originally it was meant to be multiple entry, but at the moment it's being executed as a 90-day stay only single entry. So this does drive quite a lot of compliance. And a lot of people are asking, oh, well, do I have to get this visa? Can't I just come as a business visitor? But, obviously it depends on the risk appetite of your organization. But technically, that is quite a risky thing to do. So we are lobbying, Fragment is lobbying the authorities. And, we hope that there will be some headway made on making that temporary work visa easier in the very near future. You have to be medium green in your Saudiization classification to get some Saudi temporary visas, but you can get as many as you want. Now, Saudiization is very, very complicated, and I'm never going to describe it in 30 seconds, but there's lots and lots of different layers to it. So first of all, there's general classifications. So you can be platinum, higher green, medium green, lower green, and red. Someone in the office said to me, red equals dead. Well, it sort of does, because when you get to red, you cannot actually issue any visas or renew any visas, or you cannot actually do anything. So you have to really keep up into the medium green. But really what that does, the general Saudiization policy, is that you have to count how many Saudi citizens that you have, and you have to make sure that you keep within your quota. But in addition to this, there's another layer of Saudiization, which is that you have to, for certain professions, you have another quota of how many Saudis you have to have. So for HR, any job in HR, you cannot have any expats whatsoever. They all have to be Saudi citizens. And actually, we were involved in a case quite recently of non-compliance, where a human resources person came in on a business visitor and actually was carrying out an HR function, and things did not go well. So, it's very important that you really study that profession-based Saudiization. And, then the other thing to say is that in addition with that, there are impacts if you, for example, are in a regulated profession like an accountancy or the law, and you don't have those requirements. There's very strict rules about, how you must be meeting those categories. So it is very complicated. Fragment do have dashboards, and we help monitor this for clients, because if you onboard someone in the wrong category, that could be really difficult. Oh, I really always enjoy the comments from Mina. They're so pertinent. So I must read her comment. She's saying, in addition to that, they started to monitor the Saudi national and their contribution to the company, because some companies hire them just to satisfy. That's a brilliant point.
So you can't just hire people that aren't doing something
for the
company. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. So, I mean, all in all, it's really exciting. There's such a lot of opportunity. There's so many companies that are winning projects, and so much activity. But the immigration landscape's challenging, and hopefully, I've given a little bit of an idea and also a few tips about what you should be doing, and hopefully, I think things will ease up as we go forward. Thank you.
Absolutely fascinating. Thank you, Julia. And what will you be joining us to talk about next week? Have we got a topic for next week?
Not yet.
Not yet. Oh, sorry. Well, in that case, we'll look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks, Julia.
Thank you.
And now we're going to talk to our change maker, Krista Caldwell. So please say thank you to Julia. Clap those hands, virtual thumbs up and love, and let's welcome Krista. Thanks, Julia. Hello, Krista. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you so much for being a change maker. I'm really excited. I think it's your first time on the show. Is that right?
It is, yes.
Well, I know that we know you and love you at Benivo, but I'd love you to share a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, with the rest of our audience.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I am located in Denver, Colorado, and I currently work as a mobility manager for Cohn Resnick. So I've been with the firm for about a year, and I'm helping to develop the in-house mobility program, which has been largely informal up to date.
Fantastic. And I think you've been in mobility for quite a while, right?
I have, yes. So yeah, it's funny. I actually have my university degree in international business and human resources. So I tell people it's kind of, I wanted to be in mobility before I knew what mobility was. And, at that time there was international HR or HR people who did some, international type work. But then once I started working for my last company, which was an engineering firm, I kind of just got right into it. And we had international projects where I had the opportunity to see firsthand what mobility was about, how we can help people, and really, started to really pique my interest in all the different things you can do in mobility. And kind of thrown into the fire in 2006, I took a brief assignment to Iraq. And so that was kind of my firsthand experience of mobility in a very challenging location at a very difficult time. So, it didn't scare me away, fortunately. It really got me into a place where I knew it was what I wanted to do. And having that experience from the expat side really gave me the tools to approach my job with the empathy and understanding that a lot of mobility professionals need to really support and help their assignees.
Well, that is absolutely fascinating. I know most of us, myself included, have not done a degree that has any use whatsoever in a practical application to their role. So it's great to hear someone that actually has.
Yes.
That's brilliant. And best of luck with all the transformation that you're doing in your current role. So how far through redefining your processes are you?
Really, it's taking some time to really identify what needs we have within mobility. Mm-hmm. So the firm has transformed and changed a lot over the last few years. And so a lot of what we're starting to look at is some of the internal mobility. So how can we create internal opportunities for individuals to rotate into different departments and get experience that they would otherwise not have? We've got a decent sized immigration program where we do bring individuals to the US. And in the last year, we've started a lot more sponsorship of students and kind of carrying them through to the H-1B lottery and then on to green card. So that's been something that's new to the firm, which is really helping us to attract a lot of talent earlier, which is a challenge in the accounting world. So it's been exciting to be part of that and seeing where we can create additional opportunities.
That's That's brilliant. And obviously you've joined the Changemakers, and we love having people on to talk about being a change maker, but I'd love to hear about, for you, why did you choose to become a change maker?
Yeah, thank you. So for a few reasons, I think innovation is really probably the number one. Seeing what Benivo's doing to really take what is happening in the mobility world and turning it into something tangible that can really help all of us in our programs. I think it's great to be a part of that and have input that, actually becomes something that's useful for all of us. And then I think, when it comes to how we learn and how we really find solutions to problems, being part of networking sessions where you're connected with other professionals who have been through similar problems and challenges. There's a lot of overall work done in the industry where we have best practices, but best practice might not work for you. So, what is something that maybe someone else has done or a challenge, and how did they approach it? And having those resources has just been really great to help. And then I think, when it comes to the charitable cause aspect of it, it's always great to really contribute to what you're doing professionally, but have that social impact. And so that's something that really, means a lot to me.
That's great. And so you'd encourage other people to become a change maker, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Good. Well, if anyone is interested, I know Tally's just posted in the comments section. So if you're interested at all, reach out to an existing change maker, reach out to one of us. We'd love to tell you more about it and see if it's something that would help you. And as a change maker, we like to say thank you. And a Benivo way of saying thank you is to give to a charity. And I know the charity that you've chosen is very close to your heart, Krista. So if you'd like to share with everyone why you've chosen that charity.
Yeah, absolutely. So I chose the Melanoma Research Foundation, and this is because I lost my mother to melanoma just about 19 years ago. And at the time, there was not a lot of research and resources available to, one, help support families, but also guide people through diagnosis and treatment. And the Melanoma Research Foundation is really putting a lot of time and effort into finding a cure for melanoma. And not only do they work on diagnosis and treatment, but they're really doing a lot around prevention. And skin cancer is one of the types of cancer that is definitely preventable. So really educating people from very young ages on how to prevent, occurrences of melanoma. And some can be very minor, some can be major. So, it means a lot to me that we are able to contribute to the cause and just see the developments, because you never want anyone to go through the situation that you go through. So losing a loved one is difficult, and it's nice to see that there are organizations that are trying to change this.
Well, we're really proud to represent that on your behalf. So thank you very much. And thank you so much for being a change maker, for coming on the show. We hope to welcome you back to a future show as well. But for now, I'll ask everyone to show their appreciation by giving you some love. And we'll be moving over to talk about our top 100 innovators. So this year we're doing our top 100 mobility innovators, and we've had some fantastic entries so far. I hope, Krista, you've got your entries in as well for your friends and colleagues. But we are looking for more. So nominations are open now, and let's watch a video explaining a little bit more about this before hearing more from Tally. Thanks again, Krista.
Thank you.
Welcome.
How's it going? How does it feel to be in the host seat? Are you doing good?
I don't think I'm any Brian, but I am enjoying it, and I hope everyone else is too. We'd love to hear from you. So lots of audience participation, please. But for the moment, Tally, I want to know more about our top 100 innovators. How's it going?
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to share the. Oops, sorry. Yeah, if you see all these bumps and things happening not properly, it's because Brian is not here. It's hard without him. But anyway, as you know, before the show, you asked me what is a top innovator and who are these people that we're looking for, and you actually asked me for examples. So I think I got quite a few, and especially from our previous shows. So Beth, do you remember the show we had, for example, with Maxine Anza?
Mm-hmm.
She was from Kearney, and she actually established. She was the Europe leader of Black at Kearney, so she would qualify as an amazing top innovator. And we also had, if you remember, the Green Mobility with Anna and Bjorn from Bayer.
Oh, yeah.
So both of them, they're pushing green mobility for their organization. That's another good example. And we also have a good friend of this show, Radhika. I already saw her today in the audience, and she just represented her company in a fundraising for Move for Hunger in India. So that's another way to be qualifying as a top innovator. So Radhika, I hope to see you in these lists. And so all of these are top innovators. And this is our form for the, just a second, let's translate.
Yeah, no, I saw it. I could see it. That was great. So we're looking for people. We're not just talking about innovations in global mobility. We want innovations in any aspect of work-related activity.
And you know what? For now, we have this open space there for comments. If we see that people need more help, maybe we'll turn it into rubrics of specific examples. But we're really open now. So if any one of you, this is an opportunity to nominate one of your colleagues who's doing something special. You know, it doesn't have to be in a specific area, but something special that it has to do with global mobility. Just put a bit of explanation in the box, in the comment box, and do nominate them. This is a really good way to recognize what they're doing.
That's a good opportunity for everyone to show off, and then we'll be able to share that with the global mobility world.
For sure.
All right. Fantastic. Well, if anyone's got any challenges, or you don't know who to nominate and want some more ideas, then reach out, put them on the form. We are very excited to be hearing from you all. And then, is there anything else you wanted to talk about today, Tali?
No, I think we're good. I think we have a green room full of excited talents.
Yes, well, in that case, let's move on to our main topic. I am so excited to be able to introduce two of my Benivo colleagues today. Unfortunately, Wes is not able to join us, but we do have Eric Halverson and Mary Weaver who's joining us. So let's jump in. Hello, and welcome to my fantastic guests, Mary and Eric. Thank you so much for being part of today's show and for sharing your knowledge. I am going to, Petra, thank you. I am going to let you introduce yourselves in a second, but before I do, I wanted to really get some audience participation. So before we jump into this topic, I just want to ask everyone, what does a global mobility strategy mean to you? So please join in the conversation and tell us what does a global mobility strategy mean to you? And while you're thinking about that and writing your answers, let's get some introductions from Mary, because it's your first time on the show. Mary, welcome.
Yes, it is. Thanks so much, Beth. I am Mary Weaver. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. As a side note, I also majored in international business along with Krista. So I'm another one of the few who actually use my degree and have for my entire career. I began my career in global mobility about 26 years ago at the Coca-Cola Company. Started off doing the day-to-day mobility program management, supporting Africa and some technical operations locations around the world. My second role there was an internal transformation team supporting the Global Mobility Program. And what I did as part of that team was implement technology and streamline processes. I ended up loving that so much that soon after I took a role with a mobility tech company called HR Toolbox. And I was there for 17 years, started out as director and then vice president of global client service, building that client service team. And it was our job to really help companies and RMCs of all sizes improve their mobility programs through the use of technology. I eventually went full circle and returned to the Coca-Cola Company, but this time as a global mobility consulting lead supporting Latin America as well as North America. So this was a great time for me to reset on some of the current challenges firsthand that global mobility teams are experiencing, as well as some of the challenges that the mobile employees are currently experiencing and how they've changed throughout time. So finally, I landed here at Benivo. I've been with Benivo for about just 1 month, and they already have me on the show. I'm so excited to be here. But even though I just joined, I really have been passionate about global mobility technology for a really long time. So thanks for having me.
Well, it's really exciting, and you know, I think it is great from your background that you've experienced things both from a tech company perspective and also the client side. And I'm really excited to hear what you're going to say today. And obviously we have Eric here as well, who's been on the show before. But for those people who may not know your journey and certainly your technology journey, Eric, please do introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, I'm Eric Halverson. I come from the accounting side of things. I was with several big four accounting firms. I started out as an auditor and then went into taxation. And so I used my degree as well in mobility. I started off doing corporate tax, and then we were doing international tax. And then strangely, we had these issues with executives that were moving around the world. So because I was a CPA, I got to work with the executives and their personal tax returns. And soon I was heading up that portion of the KPMG function down in San Jose. And so I ran what was called then the emerging programs in San Jose, which was dealing with most of the startup companies in the Silicon Valley at that time. As a matter of fact, every company we had except for HP, Chevron, and Agilent were under my bailiwick. And so I got to know companies from of all sizes and all sorts of program shapes. And then one day, a little company called eBay came along, and had a talk with them, and I took an opportunity to join eBay. And they, at that point, was a small little company of about 3,000 employees. They were doing mostly domestic US moves. I think they had all of 30 moves going at the time. And they had just started working and developing in the UK and in Germany. And so they just had their first couple of expats. And like most expats, 2 or 3 of them were taking up 80 to 90% of everybody's time, right?
Yeah.
So I, long story short, I joined eBay, and my task was to develop a mobility program, and also to actually be the visionary in some sense to know what the program should look like. And that's why sort of when you talk about a technology strategy, that's why this is so interesting to me, because that's essentially what I had to do with eBay, come on and develop a strategy. Why I'm here. A lot of people know me. I actually retired after 16 years with eBay as director of the mobility program there. I retired in 2019. And at that time, Nitsan and Brian approached me, would I be interested in joining the strategy council with Benivo? And so that's what I do now. I'm sort of on the strategy council, hopefully offering the internal corporate perspective on whatever it is they want to talk about. So glad to be here, and hi to all my friends out there.
It is great to see you. And I know that you're going to be running some masterclasses soon. So we're really excited that you can be part of today's class as well, so everyone can benefit from your knowledge. So today's topic is really about building a mobility technology strategy. And this is, when we introduced this show, we were saying that technology continues to evolve. And it's maturing in ways that we never envisaged, even just a few years ago. We always talk about that technology that we see in our everyday life. But how does that translate into mobility? How do you get the technology that's right for you? And how do you build a strategy that's going to be right for you, not just now, but also in the future? We know that all technology platforms can enhance operational efficiencies, like to a greater or lesser extent. But how do you actually use technology to make your program, that magical word that we all talk about, strategic? So we're going to be talking about technology and strategy in a myriad of ways today. But let's start sort of with the basics. And Mary, would you help me to just start off and define what is a technology strategy? What are we actually talking about when we talk about a technology strategy?
Absolutely, Beth. So a technology strategy is quite simply a plan of action designed to leverage technology to manage your mobility program. Your strategy really will depend on where you're at what stage of development your global mobility program is. So if you have a very small program and you're in the early stages, you may be managing everything in-house. You may be using lots of Excel spreadsheets due to little or no budget outside of your HRIS system. And this can be okay for a while, but as your program grows, it's really important to clearly define your technology strategy early before the workload becomes too cumbersome to manage. And there are a couple of parameters that I'd like to share with you as you're defining that strategy. So your strategy should be very intentional, rather than it just being something that was handed off to you or that really just sort of showed up one day. It should be intentional, and it should be documented, and it really should enable delivery of every aspect of your program, from vendor coordination to employee communication to cost management and reporting. And it should be.
We've got Mena here joining in saying global mobility strategy for her is a plan where it's a set based on the company's objectives. So when you're saying it's intentional to meet the company's objectives or some objectives.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. And then the one other thing that I would add is that it should be created by the right people on your team. And Mena and others, I would ask, who do you see as the right people on your team? Mobility leaders, technology, the technology resources supporting HR, the end users. Who else would you include in that list to help develop the strategy?
So would you also say that, so you talked about it should be intentional. So does that mean there's like conscious and unconscious strategies? So do we all have a strategy even if we don't know we have one?
Yes, you do have an unconscious strategy, even if it's an Excel spreadsheet to start. But the goal is for it to be that very conscious and intentional strategy thought out by the right people together.
Okay, so then maybe moving on to so from what it is, why do we need one? Eric, maybe you can help us out there. Why do we need this technology strategy?
Well, you need one to be intentional, to not be reactive. I might step back and say, I'm not sure you can have a strategy if you're unconscious. What you have is a program. What you have is you're being pushed along by a stream. You're reacting to all sorts of impulses and things, but you don't necessarily have a strategy. I think a strategy has to be, by definition, a conscious, intentional plan to, first of all, meet the objectives, or at least define the objective of what your program is and the objective of what your technology is supposed to do. And in that respect, then you're thinking, okay, what is the objective of our program? And then how am I going to use technology to meet that objective? And of course, that should align with your company's overall objective, right? So there's this alignment that doesn't just happen by chance. It happens by intention. So why do you need the strategy? Because it doesn't happen without knowing where you're going. You have to know where you want to go in order to drive all your all your exercises, all your tasks, all your efforts, all your resources towards that goal. Otherwise, and I know this by experience, otherwise things come up on a daily basis that tend to push you off task, tend to push you off your primary objective into secondary and other objectives. So your strategy involves, why do you need a strategy? Your strategy involves prioritizing your objectives and identifying your primary objective and identifying your secondary objectives, and so that you prioritize the uses and the benefits. So there are things you should do before shopping for your technology or determine what kind of technology you want. You need to know where you're going before you know how you're going to get there.
Yeah, and then maybe if you could speak, I don't know, Mary, if you want to talk a little bit about your personal experience of some strategies that maybe you've seen. Can you get some? So just so we've sort of defined what it is, very high level, but can you give me some examples of a tech strategy?
Absolutely, sure. So when I think about some of the specific pieces of the technology strategy, one of those purposes might be like operational excellence, for example. So all companies, for the most part at this point, are providing some form of analytics to their stakeholders today, right? But I challenge you to think about how much time is being invested in gathering that data and putting it into a meaningful, presentable format. I know I have been caught up in that web of pulling and manipulating data in Excel to try to return that meaningful information. But by having a strategy that's promoting operational excellence and leveraging technology, that should really happen automatically if you have that solid tech strategy in place, rather than having to revert back to these manual calculations to present to the business.
Fantastic. I've got a comment from Bill saying leveraging technology to better balance financial equity versus emotional equity spend. I think that's a really great way to look at it as well. Okay, so we've defined what is a technology strategy. We've talked a little bit about why we need one, sort of as a global mobility team and company. But who is it for? Like, who is this technology strategy actually for? Maybe Eric, you can take that one.
Yeah, well, it's from my selfish perspective as a mobility director. It's for me first. I've got to run this program. I've got to make sure employees are getting moved. I got to make sure that I'm able to report to management. I need to make sure that it's all happening. So in my selfish perspective, I'm the primary user. It better make me happy. Secondary, obviously, is the employee or the customer himself, right? Or herself. It's got to be something that they can utilize correctly. And, and I think this is important, is that who else in the organization can utilize this? And I think this is maybe a point where sometimes we overlook. I know at eBay, one of the areas I had was we were saying, well, we were technology shopping, and it's like, well, what do we want our technology to do? Okay, so we'd identified what for us was the primary objective. There are a lot of objectives, like going back a step. You can look at scaling to increased volumes can be your primary driver. Cost reporting and cost reduction can be your primary driver. I remember when Intel built their own because they wanted a self-customized flexibility program. The employee or customer experience can be your primary driver. Compliance could be your primary driver. And some of these times they compete against each other. You can have cost reduction competing against employee experience, right? So once you've identified these are your primary drivers as you understand them. But then it's like, okay, well, what other data points can be helpful to others? And that's when at eBay, one of the things we did was we went out and we talked to our functional partners. And so we went out and we talked to, accounting and finance, and, what would help you for us to get, we talked to the compliance guys. We knew what immigration needed. We talked to our corporate tax people. What would be helpful for you? We talked to the stock plan administration group, which is any company that issues stock, is a huge component. We went and talked to the other HR departments, talent acquisition. What would you need? We talked to compensation. We talked to benefits. And we found that there were all these functional partners that if you went to them and said, we're shopping for technology, what is it that would help you? All of a sudden, there was an incredible flow of input. And this helped us in other ways too, because as we were going shopping, when we were looking for budget, we said, well, if we can help you get this, can you help us with some budget issues? So there was this give and take that was possible. So when you say, who is the strategy for it, you know.
It could be for more people than you originally think, as long as you ask. I think
right.
that's something that I'm doing with quite a few people that I speak to at the moment, when we're talking about what, obviously, you know, what Benivo can deliver, but also what other departments it could deliver for. So there's got employees, obviously one of the ones that really jumps to the top when people are thinking about technology that they don't currently have. So there's a lot of technologies out there that are delivering for the business, but not for the employee. But as you said, even when we're talking about the business, there's all those different groups as well. That's great. Sorry, Mary.
Oh, and Beth, I just specifically want to highlight within the business, aligning closer with the talent acquisition team. This one is a huge one that I know in my role, I was actively trying to improve, and I hear a lot of other colleagues in the industry say, you know, we need to align closer with talent. We need to get involved earlier in the mobility decision-making process. And that should all be part of your tech strategy, because that can help you provide better scenario planning and give the talent acquisition team the data they need to help them make a decision. That if they want to send someone to place them in a role and send them to a certain location, is that the right location? How long will it take to get them placed in that location? Based on immigration and the data that you can obtain around current processing times. And then, you know, if that location doesn't work, what about another location? How much will it cost compared to the previous? So there's so much information that can be shared with that talent team to help drive that talent strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it would be great to hear from the audience as well. So we started by saying, you know, what do you think a talent strategy is? But has anyone actually got a talent strategy in place that they're happy to, or, you know, to say, yes, I've got one and this is it? Has anyone actually thought about it in those terms? And I really hope that we have people at lots of different stages of the journey today. So I was really interested in your introduction, Eric, when you were talking about how when you joined eBay, it was that greenfield site. You had 30 people moving, but you saw the future. You knew that you were going to have to help people in the future, and you needed technology to do that because you weren't going to get more people. So it had to be through technology. So that sort of brings us on to, you know, when is the right time to think about technology strategy? Is there a wrong time to think about technology strategy? Maybe you can help us with that one, Eric.
Well, I think the wrong time to think about it is when you're drowning, when you're already in crisis mode, because then you're just trying to, you know, put your finger in the dike and stop the leaks. And that's not really a strategy. So, you know, the best time to think about it is right at the beginning, as soon as possible. When I first came to eBay, as a matter of fact, that's how I kind of sold myself into eBay, because eBay was one of my clients. And I went and spoke to them and said, you know, we're just, you know, have you thought about putting processes in place before the growth that you're going to have? You know, because I had worked with other companies like Ariba, I'd worked with McAfee, and I'd worked with them as they were small before they expanded, and watched what happened with them. And I said, eBay, you guys are just on the cusps right now. You guys are getting ready to explode. Wouldn't it be something to have these processes and practices in place prior to that growth, as opposed to trying to react to the growth later? And so that was kind of how I came onto eBay, because I was working with a systems person, and that person said, yes, let's build it beforehand. So the answer is as soon as you can. If you haven't started yet, then now's the time to do it.
And are there different populations that strategy could apply to? So we've all seen so much change in the mobility industry over the last couple of years because of pandemic and just general changes in what technology is available. So has that changed how we see the triggers for approaching a technology strategy?
Well, I see it. I mean, you start out and the first thing you say is, you know, what's the size and shape of my current program? Mm-hmm. You know, what's my current staffing size? Am I international? Do we move VIPs mostly or managers? Do we move groups, or do we move individuals? And others, you know, and so understand, you know, what your program is currently, and then what are you using now? And then what are its strengths and weaknesses? And then I think what you have to ask is, what are we going to look like a year from now? What are we going to look like 3 years from now? What are we going to look like 5 years from now? And that obviously, you know, is going to require talking to a management to getting some input from, the strategic planners in the organization, so you can think ahead. I remember going to one of our RMCs and saying, I've just been told we're going to hire 10,000 people in the next year. How are we going to ramp up to do that? And then there was another time I was told we were going to hire 30,000 people over the next 4 years. Well, if you get that kind of input, you begin to, not only does it scare the hell out of you, but then you begin to plan for it, right? And then you got to think, how is the current technology meeting the needs now? And the fact that, is it meeting the needs now, but will it meet the needs in a year? Will it meet the needs in 3 years? And then you got to ask, what's my budget? Do I have budget? Do I need to start working on getting, but these are sort of the practical logistical things, right? I can talk about technology. Then it's like, well, what's the source of my technology going to be? Am I going out and buying some kind of standalone program? Am I going to rely on my RMCs to provide the technology? If I shop technology, does that mean I have to change RMCs? Then, how aware are you of the options out there? You may think, yeah, my technology is great, but you may be a day late and a dollar short. You may be running behind with old technology if you're not constantly keeping your finger on the pulse of what's new and what's out there. So you actually have to budget some of your time just to educate yourself to all the innovations that are taking place in technology.
And I think that's probably something that you and I both see, Mary, is when we speak to clients, helping educate them about what has changed, what's out there. So even if they're not ready for change to their technology now, what should they be aware of? What should they be challenging their current provider or their current solution to deliver for them? So, Mary, in your experience, have you come across any sort of big triggers that you would say that people need to look out for about things that are changing in their program? I think your comment about talent acquisition was fantastic earlier. So maybe speaking with them and seeing who's coming through.
Well, yes. And in thinking through what you were just saying about being aware of what all technology options are out there, one of the key areas of importance right now, I think, is that employee experience, and really making sure that they're able to relocate in a manner that works for them. And the makeup of that group is changing, right? And everything else outside of global mobility, we do things on our own. We order things and we expect quick results. And we do a lot of things online on our own, do our own research. And so being able to enable employees to do some of that and also get the support that they need for any big issues during the relocation process, I think is very important. So the wants and needs of the employee has changed. And so the technology used to support the strategy should change alongside with it.
Yeah. And I think we need to react to the changes in the industry. I mean, when you look at the dependence now on business travel, where before no one wanted to really take care of business travel, but now, now you have to look at business travel. You have to look at how do you track remote workers? How do you, there's an emphasis, maybe a greater emphasis, let me say, on the compliance and privacy and risk mitigation
than
maybe ever before.
And the global mobility professionals are the ones who are best equipped with the knowledge to handle all those challenges around the remote workers. And so it's our scope of work as global mobility professionals is growing with the changes in employment.
Yeah, so that's a really good lead into a sort of what does the future hold? Let's move on to talking about the future. That's my favorite thing. So we've talked about sort of what a strategy is, why you should have one, who needs to be involved, how to understand when you need one, which is basically as soon as possible, before you need it. So moving on to how do we future-proof that technology strategy? How do we future-proof that choice? Who wants to take that one?
Sure. I'll start and then Eric can chime in. I think just start with the basics. Is it scalable? Can it grow with your the population as the population you're managing changes, both up or down? And
so we've seen that quite a lot with obviously the impact of COVID and people not traveling. Maybe the solution that they have in place wasn't scalable. If they had lots of people, that's less scalable than the technology.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely. And then how secure is it? How protected is your data? We're dealing with such confidential data that you want to make sure you have the highest level of protection available and that you are not putting yourself, the company, or your employees at risk. I would also think about how often is the technology updated, and are there costs associated with those updates? And if so, you need to make sure that you budget for that. Do you need customizations unique to your organization? And if so, can the technology you're using support those customizations? And how does that impact future updates? Right?
Yeah, I think that's something that Eric, you were mentioning earlier, that you needed those customizations, but then you ended up having to change technologies or change companies to support that because those innovations didn't continue.
Yeah, it became a real
needed
important
more.
issue. When you're looking which technology to buy or to utilize, or it's like you don't know what's around the corner. You don't know what the change is. You don't know, if the president's going to make some kind of proclamation where suddenly you've got data needs that you never had to, deal with it before. So how adaptable and how flexible, how customizable is the the technology you're using? I know that in the past, we had been sold technology that we had been told it was really customizable. But when the push came to shove, we found that it was on a platform that only had so many fields. And then if you wanted to do something, well, that's not on our roadmap for this year, but maybe, next year.
And this is how much it's going to cost you, and then you're on a different version that can't get updated with everyone else's.
Right, right.
I think a lot of people have fallen into that trap with technology, and actually it's given people like PTSD that I've spoken to about implementing something. They've implemented it, they finally got what they wanted, but then their needs have changed, and then they discover that what they put in place wasn't future-proof because it can no longer change to meet their needs that have now changed, because that wasn't planned for 3 years ago or 2 years ago. So with that in mind, we've talked about sort of how to future-proof, but let's talk more about now the future. So what does the future actually hold? Let's dream big. We did ask, we're very happy to take dreams from the audience as well. Please let us know, what do you think the future holds? So I'm going to start here with Eric. I know you've got some big dreams.
Well, I know in general, I know this is one of Brian's hot points too, is you just think that the technology for the mobility industry should at least be as sophisticated as the technology for your pizza delivery guy, right?
He has said that once or twice. I've heard that.
If you can make a purchase on Amazon and eBay, and you can track the purchase, and you're getting updates all the time, and you know exactly what's going on, and it's this easy to respond, you should have at least that same ability with mobility. So in general, you just need to see a whole level of sophistication improve. I'd also add that one of the things is like, I know when I go and make a purchase online, I suddenly get all sorts of suggestions. Hey, if you like this, why don't you think about this? Or people like you also like this. So you see the predictability and the suggestive AI.
I love that. I definitely love it when I'm going shopping and I'm buying stuff online and it says, oh, you bought this, maybe you'll also like this, or you're browsing for this, maybe you like that. And I can see that application with CoreFlex.
And I think the trend in mobility is to give the employee more choices, is to make the user experience more like an Amazon or another platform purchasing kind of experience, where they have more choices, they have more selections, they feel like their benefits are, they're under their control. So the more that is able to do it. I also see the application of virtual experiences that we haven't really talked about being used a lot more. We certainly saw it thrown upon us in the age of COVID, right? When all of a sudden everything was Zoom. But what we learned is that we could do a lot more without actually having to travel, without actually having to be there. And so I'm interested in seeing the future of virtual experience, particularly with augmented reality and some of these other things. I know we've talked about this, we may be holding meetings where our holograms are all in the same meeting room together, or
yeah, well, that's not so much that's not not that much in the future. I think it's already happening. I think Tally's challenging us a little bit more with space shuttles and global mobility to the moon and relocating people to Mars. So I think that's looking a little bit further ahead. But in the last minute, Mary, would you like to share what you think the future holds before I bring everyone back in?
Yes, for me, it's really just if our industry could fully embrace all the things that artificial intelligence and machine learning can do to drive the mobility workflow, we can do some amazing things. And to do that, we really have to trust the technology to do its job consistently each time. We trust it when we're ordering a pizza or when we're ordering things on Amazon. But if we can really trust that technology and fully embrace AI and machine learning and have some great VR experiences along the way, I think that would be fantastic.
Well, this has been such an interesting discussion. Thank you so much. I love talking about technology and technology strategy, and I'm hoping that our audience enjoyed it as well. But we have come to the top of the hour, so I'd like to invite everyone back on screen. Welcome back, Julia. Welcome back, Krista. Welcome back, Tally. Thank you so much, everyone. Please do show your appreciation, audience, by doing the claps and the cheers. Next week, Brian will be back speaking about all things mobility with Lynn Shotwell and giving you that sneak preview of what's in store for those at the ERC. We look forward to seeing everyone there, and thank you very much for your time. Bye.
And thank you, Beth, for being such an amazing host. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.
Bye.